God is the answer. Yes, and amen to that. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, beautiful beings of love and light. It's so good to see you here this day. Before we do anything else, I invite you now. I don't know how this works with Spotlight, but I invite you to bring up your gallery view and just notice who's here today. Notice who's here and give a hello, a shout out to everyone here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So good to see you this morning. All right. Yes. Arlene out there in Lake County in the beautiful outdoors. Looks like Valerie's in the outdoor and Reverend Verona is, but we know those are background pictures. We're all in the outdoors because God is everywhere and we are everywhere. All right. Thank you. And Kathy, yes, thank you for that beautiful song, The Way Knows the Way, that you played during the intermission. That not intermission, but before the service started. That was just such a beautiful song anchoring the theme today and the topic today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So good to see you all. I think I'm going to keep you all on gallery view so I can see your beautiful faces. All right, so we've been talking about freedom this month, and we've been talking about the freedom to choose, freedom to choose and to manifest and all that good stuff. And today the question is, why is this happening? Any of you ever asked that in your life? Why is this happening? And usually it comes with a bit of an attitude when we ask that. Now, those of you who have been with me for a while know that I always tell you that the important question isn't why, it's what. But we're going to look today at why is this happening? And toward the end, I'm going to give you a new question to ask yourself, similar to that, but a little bit different. So stay with me here. All right, so why is this happening? So we've been talking about how, our thoughts and our vibrations create out of themselves. And that this is really, when we talk about this, we're knowing that we are the divine, that spirit is our very life. And spirit is the creative principle of life. So of course, we have that creative principle in us. So, and in scripture, it says in a couple of places about the word of God creates. The word became flesh and dwells among us. In the beginning was the word. And so the word, which means more than just words, it means words, it means the vibration behind the word. I can be saying a word, I can be affirming something absolutely wonderful, affirming a loving, harmonious relationship, affirming beautiful people in my life, affirming abundance and prosperity, affirming health and wholeness and all this stuff. I can be saying all of that. And if subconsciously I'm feeling, oh, that's not true. Do you ever affirm something and I need head nods here. Do you ever affirm something and then something in you goes, are you crazy? This can't be true. And so what we're talking about here when we say the word is the word and the vibration, the word and the feeling tone. It's always about the word and feeling tone. So that being said, I know there have been times in my life when my word, my feeling tone, my vibration feels like it's there, right? It's there in terms of what I'm affirming in my life. And then somehow things go upside down. It's like, wait a minute, this isn't looking right. This isn't looking what I affirmed. And I've always trusted and known that divine comes through. The law of life always, always brings forth. My highest good always brings forth what I'm knowing in consciousness. And why is this happening? So I want to give you a few reasons, different reasons that it might be happening. And I'm giving you these reasons because I don't want us to get into that old new thought pattern, the old thought, which we called new thought, but really and truly it just induced guilt. And that is the question, what's your consciousness about that this happened in your life? What's going on in your consciousness that this happened in your life? And we want to stay away from that question. Do you see how that could induce guilt? It doesn't make me feel good if somebody asks that question. Instead of being compassionate, instead of being loving, instead of seeing me in the higher light, what they're doing is they're seeing me, or you, or whoever we're talking about, they're seeing us in the light of where our thoughts shouldn't be. You know what I'm saying? And so we want to just banish that question. What's in your consciousness that created this? We want to banish that from our vocabulary, from our sentences, from life itself. So what are some ways, and these are all ways, mind you, think of this is a new little twist on it. These are all ways that the law is manifesting your heart's desire, is manifesting what you're affirming and knowing to be true. So let your mind get tweaked a little bit with this one. So first of all, one of the ways that the law manifests is by letting us know, letting us see what our subconscious thought patterns are. You know, there's a story of Job in the Hebrew scripture. And if you know the story of Job, everything fell apart in his life. I mean, everything. And what it says in the story of Job is, he says, that which I feared the most has come upon me. That which I have feared the most has come upon me. So what's that telling us? He was a man of God. You know, he was not some low-level life. You know, he was a man of God. And yet all of this was happening in his life, that which I feared the most. And you might use words like that which I am most anxious about, that which I dread the most, that which I pay the most attention to. Notice that. I can perhaps affirm things in my affirmative prayer, in my affirmations and so forth. And what's the majority of my attention? Where is the majority of my attention going? So what that's saying is that it brings up subconscious stuff. Now, how is this a manifestation? It's a manifestation because it lets us see where our attention needs to be. If I'm frightened and scared, not knowing, let's say, everything in the world today, let's say everything in our country today, and that's really up with the conventions going on and all of that kind of a thing. And let's say I'm really scared about that. So what I want to know is the opposite of that. I need to trust and know that somehow the law of life is working this out for our good. I have to keep anchoring myself in that awareness. And it's easy to get pulled off that these days, isn't it? It's very easy to get pulled off. And so I need to, the way I always say it is, what's the polar opposite of what I fear, what I'm anxious about, what I don't want to see? See, what I say I don't want to see gives attention to what I don't want. For example, a lot of you know, I come from an alcoholic family. My dad was an alcoholic. And I always just was like, I do not want to marry an alcoholic. Well, guess what? Guess what? And I didn't see that at first in this particular person. And then we got married, and all of a sudden, he's hanging out with my dad, and they're drinking together, and the alcoholism, the addiction was there in the first place, but it found itself expressing as alcoholism. And I know, I'm so clear that happened because I so didn't want it. You know, I was placing my attention on what I didn't want instead of what I did want. So I just encourage you, you know, where is your attention? We use that phrase in meditation. I encourage you to use that phrase all day long. Where is my attention? So that your life is a walking meditation, so that you're continually awake and aware. So that's one. That's what Reverend Michael calls the Job factor. The Job factor. That's, you know, that which I don't want to see, that which I fear. And that can be anything lurking in your subconscious. It can be a sense of lack and limitation that maybe you feel you've healed. And by the way, here's the thing too, and a lot of you know this, that, you know, we do heal things at a certain level. And when I say heal, I mean reveal deeper layers of ourselves. Because really there's nothing to be healed, there's only truth or God to be revealed. So that's what I'm talking about there. And so when these things come up, they're insights. Oh, okay, I need to do some more work in this. And it's always pulling us to our greatest yet to be. It's always pulling us into greater joy, greater beauty, greater wisdom, greater love, all of these beautiful qualities. Whoops, my computer just about fell over here. Anyway, all of those beautiful qualities. What happened? Just a second. Huh. Okay, I see what happened. Sorry about that. All of these beautiful qualities, they're always pulling us into themselves. And so we get to see them more clearly sometimes by what those subconscious patterns that are pulling us even stronger sometimes, you know. So what is it that is pulling me subconsciously? I get to see it. And by the way, these subconscious patterns can become the patterns of love, peace, joy, harmony, etc. That's what our work is about. That's what our prayer work is about. That's what our meditation is about, being pulled. Because when lots of times when I hear us talking about the subconscious, it's, oh, that's subconscious. Well, the subconscious also carries the faith that we have, the love that we have, the peace that we carry within us, the joy. So we've got both going on. It's, you know, what am I listening to and how am I responding? So that's that Job factor. The second one that we talk about a lot is lessons we get in life. So oftentimes situations happen, and again, this is a manifestation because it's showing us where we need to grow. It's manifesting. So it is manifesting our growth and unfoldment in a beautiful way. So I was thinking last night about Edwene Gaines because her life, you know, and I wish I had looked up the story, but I think I remember it well enough. And the story is she was married and the guy turned out to be pretty horrible and she ended up poorer because of it. She ended up with not enough money. She ended up in this dire situation. And you can look at her, what's the name of her book? The Four Laws of Prosperity or something. You can look it up, or it's probably on the web somewhere. But anyway, so she found herself, I believe it is, she found herself in a hotel in a different country. He was gone. He had left, kind of left her stranded there with very little of anything. And so what the lesson in it for her was, and she took it very well, instead of boo-hooing, you know, complaining, victimizing herself, which she did for a while. And I remember one of the stories is she was telling a minister that was kind of like her mentor how bad it was. And he just, at one point, he had listened and he had been very compassionate. And then when she was rerunning her story yet again, he was like, stop it. Just stop it. You know, you're validating this story. I'm putting my words in his mouth. You're victimizing yourself. You're playing victim here. You aren't a victim. And so what she came to out of that, here was the lesson. Her life's work was the lesson. So what she decided she was going to affirm and become is a key word here, was I am a powerful woman. I'm a woman of power and abundance, I believe it was. I am a woman of power and abundance. And if any of you have seen Edwene Gaines, if you've seen Edwene Gaines, raise your hand. I mean, she is amazing. She comes across that way, you know, and she just knows what she knows and is powerfully abundant and has created a whole ministry because she has decided not to be the victim. She has decided to live that lesson in her life. And so when we talk about another way of the law manifesting that doesn't look real pretty all the time, imagine being abandoned in a hotel in a different country, you know, and left with pretty much nothing. Imagine that she might have gone into victimhood for a minute. And imagine that somebody blessed her, woke her up and said, stop, This isn't our teaching, just stop. And she decided to make something wonderful out of it. So before she had felt victimized, now she created a feeling tone of empowerment, and she became empowered. Where she felt lack and limitation, she created a feeling tone of abundance and became abundance. And not only did she become it, that's been her life's mission, to teach abundance and prosperity. I think her mission, and correct me if I'm wrong, Reverend Verona, but I think her mission really is to teach it to the world so that everybody, everywhere, has abundance. It's not just for us as individuals, it's like, so the whole world, the whole planet. That became her vision. That became her mission. And she's been doing that. I don't know if she's still doing it now, because I haven't seen her on the scene lately. Has she, Reverend Verona? Are you saying yes to that? She is. Okay. So, yeah, and I remember when we had her at OCSL a couple of times. We liked having her. She was fun to have. And she would basically give the center 90% of all the proceeds from when she spoke, from when she gave a workshop, because she knew her abundance, you see. So most centers, you get 50-50 or 60-40 or something like that. She gave 90% of it. And so then what we always did was we always tithed that to her, because she was big on tithing. And then what she would do after that, she would tithe us, but she would tithe back to us what we had tithed to her. She had tithed. So it went back and forth for a few weeks there, back and forth, tithing back and forth. And it was so much fun, to do that. And everybody prospered. The center prospered, she prospered, and individuals who started living the teaching that she taught prospered. So that's just an example how someone took a really difficult situation and used it for her empowerment and used it for her life purpose. We might ask ourselves sometimes when those lessons come up, how is this contributing to my life's purpose? What's going on here? How's it contributing to my life's purpose? And then another part of that, and I always think lessons and blessings kind of come together. I tend to call them blessings. But anyway, because out of that, do you see how then she became a blessing to the world? Yes, she got her lesson. And then out of that circumstance, she became a blessing as well. And so those can often go together. Oftentimes people come into this world basically to bless other people. We all do that, but sometimes people come in dire situations, dire circumstances, for the blessing of other people. Or there can be something in your life that happens, perhaps an illness, or perhaps a financial downfall, or perhaps a difficult relationship, perhaps. And perhaps you're feeling pain from it. I don't want to say suffering, because we don't have to go into suffering, but we can feel pain. And so what can happen out of that is that somebody else gets the blessing of your suffering. Reverend Michael mentions, and I read this book by Helen Graves, what's it called? The Wheels of Eternity, I think it's called. And it's about people who have incarnated on this planet to bless other people's lives. The one example that he mentions is the one of the son. He's 10 years old, and he was mentally challenged, and his mother had a hard time with it. She wasn't a particularly loving person. So what happened then was, during this time of him being with her, she became more compassionate. She became more loving. Do you see this? He was a blessing. He brought forth compassion in her. He brought forth love in her. And then when he knew his work was done, because he was an advanced soul living on this planet. We never want to judge anybody, mind you. We never know who the advanced souls are that seem really terrible sometimes to us. Not that this kid did, but I think sometimes of some political figures I think of, and I think, oh my God. And then I think, no, wait a minute, what's the blessing here? What's the blessing? What is this person waking me up to? So anyway, what happens is then when he's 10 years old, he drowns in the swimming pool, which of course brings her great grief. But he knew his work was done. And the reason Helen knew this is she had the ability to communicate with people on the other side. And so she had communicated with him on the other side. And he said that was it. And then of course, she felt sadness, she felt grief, but he also had opened her heart. His whole mission, he had opened her heart, and probably the heart of countless other people as well. So do you see how something that can be real difficult for us can be a blessing to others? I was thinking of a time, this was years ago, early 2000s, and I had a hip replacement, had to have a hip replacement, and I was in the hospital, and the woman next to me, because in those days you didn't have your own room all the time, but the woman in the bed next to me had cancer. For some reason, we were in the same room, which usually she really should have been in a different room, or I should have been, but we were together. And I remembered thinking to myself, I wonder if I'm here to be her blessing. I wonder if this is part of the blessing, you see, that I get to be for this person. And I don't mean that, don't say that to sound arrogant. It's just that, I know how this stuff works. I know that when we have challenging times, it can uplift other people oftentimes. And we can be in somebody's life not knowing why, and yet one word for us perhaps can shift their whole experience. And I didn't, we didn't even talk that much, but when I was there, I was continually knowing the truth for her, because obviously it was very difficult for her. And so I know that that had some kind of impact, some kind of influence. So the smallest things sometimes that can seem difficult or chaotic to us can be a blessing for other people. So, there are lessons, there are blessings. And of course, the last thing I want to mention is the collective consciousness, what in religious science is known as the race consciousness. What Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. So that collective consciousness, see, when we speak our word of truth, oftentimes I'm guessing, that we speak it in the mentality that my word and my consciousness are the only things that matter here, that this is gonna manifest. Well, the thing is, we live in a whole sea of consciousness. You know what I'm saying? We live in a whole sea of consciousness. And so there are a lot of factors in any situation. And that's why we can never judge either. And so in that sea of consciousness, something may happen that is not your consciousness particularly, but it grabbed a hold of you for a minute. And so there's a collective unconscious that can influence, not influence, manifest in our lives. Now, what I want to say about that is there's some things we can work with that. First of all, guard your consciousness. Keep vigil over your I see you, Jerry. Like, yeah, keep vigil over your consciousness so that I don't have to tell you, these days there's such a fear going on. There's so much stuff going on in consciousness, I would say a lot of it based in fear. And so what you want to do is you want to just notice. That's why meditation is so important. Being vigilant is so important. Noticing where your thoughts are, noticing where your attention is so important, because you don't want to allow the fear-ridden consciousness that's so prevalent these days to grab you. And it's easy for that to happen. That's why we emphasize here meditation, prayer, practicing the presence throughout the day, being aware, where is my attention? Being aware that the presence of God is right here, right now. Being aware that all things are working together for good, even when I can't see it, that all things work together for good. And so we want to continually allow those to be our thoughts, those to be our feelings, and the collective consciousness does affect us. The other thing we can do and we're doing it right now, is be in community with like-minded souls. Be in community with people who are uplifting, people who talk about the beauty and the love and the joy and the peace and the wisdom and the intelligence. Surround yourself with individuals like that. Be in that particular, they say there are schools of consciousness here on Earth plane. One of those schools of consciousness is the school where we know love, we know beauty, we know intelligence, we know right action, that we're in that particular school of consciousness. And so I know for myself, a lot of people have said to me, oh, I get all of this negative stuff on Facebook. I don't ever get negative stuff on Facebook. Why? And I'm sure that a lot of you have the same experience, because the people that I connect with are people of higher vibration. And so, and then one of my daughters in particular, she's like, oh my God, all this stuff and blah, 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 blah. And I know why, because a lot of the people that she has connected with in the past and that she still connects with are fear-ridden, are living in fear, or living in a state of just, Ernest Holmes talks about the only reason we're in bondage is because we're ignorant. And so when I say ignorant, I don't mean it as a put down, but that there's part of us that just doesn't know. And so these individuals just don't know yet. And so I'm looking at the chat for a minute to see if I'm missing anything. All right. Yeah, so who are you surrounding yourself by? Be in community. Be in community. It can be just any kind of community that's uplifting. Of course, we want you to be in our community, and any community that's uplifting and because we're an Agape satellite, we're part of the larger Agape nation and Agape community, which is powerful, you see. It's powerful and it has an effect on us. So all of these can be factors, and I'm sure there are so many more, because life isn't a pat, cut and dry situation. It's not cause and effect, just cause and effect. That's not what life is. We teach here there's a whole sea of emergence. We teach the law of emergence, that things emerge from within us. They emerge for our growth and for our unfoldment. They emerge from the consciousness that we are. And the law of radiance, that, we radiate who we are. We become who we are. So that's our teaching. And when I look at all of you, I look at people that I know are living this teaching, that you're really working on yourself. You're really working on working, I guess is not a good word to use, but practicing being the greatest you can be. The intention here is that each and every one of us live the highest and best truth, live our soul's highest possibility. And you know what that brings? Yes, there are challenges on the way, and that brings joy. That brings bliss. That brings so much happiness, so much peace when we're living that vibration. So a couple more things I want to say. I came across this quote. It was actually in Pema Chodron's book, When Things Fall Apart. And the quote is by the Venerable Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. All the different Rinpoches. This is, I love this quote. I thought I'm going to use it tomorrow. Chaos should be regarded as extremely good news. Chaos should be regarded as extremely good news, because and what we say at Agape is, we call it K-order, that out of the chaos comes order. And that chaos happens whenever something new is created, chaos happens. That's just the way it is. So, and we're going through changes here at Agape Bay Area. Chaos, is what some people are feeling now. And I get that. I totally get it. And let's see it as something positive, as something we don't have to fear, because we know a greater order is coming forth. Chaos is happening in our country. Chaos is happening in the world. And we're the ones who have been called to see the highest truth, to see it as something magnificent, a new world being birthed. That's what we're called to see. And because we have said yes to it, we're in, and then we have all of these beings of light all across the world, all of these beings of light, not only in the seen dimension of the world, but in the cosmos and in the unseen dimension, of higher consciousness, of what's on the other side. We have the angelic realm, we have ascended masters, we have spirit guides, we have all of these individuals that are with us, that are so to speak rooting for us, and with us. And so we're so very blessed in keeping our attention on that, instead of sometimes when chaos ensues, and sometimes when we're thinking, oh, why is this happening? And sometimes do you ever want to run away from it? I have at times in my life. Wanted to run away sometimes from something that has happened. That I was thinking recently of when my older daughter, she was, well, how old was she? Late teens, early 20s. She tried to commit suicide. And I remembered thinking, oh my God, and I did. I remember specifically, and I was a practitioner, saying, why is this happening? And then I remember the question that came out of this, that it was, I've always been so good. Why is this happening to me? It seems like a silly question to me now, but that was a question because the situation seemed so dire. And of course, I quickly noticed my thoughts, because I was a practice meditator, noticed the thoughts and turned it around on the way to the hospital. There, and in community, and I remember Reverend Coco Stewart went with me to the hospital. In community, you have people supporting you in community. So I understand how we want to run away. Some people want to run away from things in more subtle ways, like through addictions. That's not so subtle, I guess. And there are all kinds of addictions, by the way. It's not necessarily substance abuse. It could be watching too much TV or entertainment. Entertainment can be a great addiction. Sex can be a great addiction. All of these different ways that we can put our attention somewhere than on the chaos. And here's the thing. What we want to do is, instead of putting our attention away from the chaos, we want to turn it to the chaos. We want to turn our attention to the chaos. There's a story about a Buddhist master. I don't remember what year it was, but they were deciding, he and his attendants were deciding to go to this other Buddhist monastery. And as they got there, at the opening, at the gate, there was this vicious dog. He was chained up, but he was vicious, and he was, growling and just straining to get rid of the chains. And they walked by, and they did their best not to notice him and give him attention. And after they walked through, the dog did break the chain and started running toward them. Now, the interesting thing is the attendees were all, on their way running away. But the master, the Buddhist master, started running, but he ran toward the guard dog. He ran toward the dog, even though the dog was vicious, was snarling, all that kind of stuff. And the story goes that the dog just saw, when the master got up to him, the dog just put his tail between his legs and walked away. And that's, whether it's true or not, it's a good metaphor. We want to walk toward the chaos. We want to walk toward it. We want to just notice it, be with it, no matter how challenging it is to be with. Be with it, notice it, and notice it without judgment. Just simply notice. And then as we notice it, we can start to open the door to let go of it. Because do you see, when you run away from something in your consciousness, you're just solidifying it. You're just making it stronger. What we resist persists. And so we want to always be with it, no matter how painful. And these things can be painful. I know that. Just be with it, notice it, give it space to move, and we can do our affirmative prayer with it. we can affirm with it as well. But first, notice. You know, it used to be in the old days, the old days of religious science and New Thought, that everybody just run to prayer right away. Now it's totally changed. If you listen to all the New Thought teachers and master teachers, be with it, notice it, and then you can affirm it. Then you can, because you've given it space to move and you've given it attention, and not the kind of attention that reinforces it, but just the kind of, oh, I see you, and you can go now. I see you, you can go now. So instead of just asking that question, why is this happening? We have practices that we know work. We absolutely know. And we can trust in being with the experience. Spirit's right here as you. See, that's the thing in itself. As you are witnessing, as you are noticing, this is God witnessing. This is God noticing. It all comes back to, do I know who I am? This is the divine witnessing. This is the divine witnessing the world seen through my eyes. So how do I want to see this world? How do I want to see my life? How do I want to see my spiritual community? How do I want to see my family, or whatever, whoever it is that's around you? And of course, we know that how we see things comes right back to us, because the universe mirrors our thoughts, our vibrations, what we are being. So, in conclusion, what I want you to do is ask yourself the question, why is good always happening? Why is good always happening? Why is this always happening? And then you can just translate, oh, why is good always happening? I know there's a blessing in here. You know, I'm open for it. I'm receptive. Show me the blessing, because I know good is happening. Why is this good always happening to me? So I just encourage you to turn that question into a question that that I say is okay to ask why about. Why is this good always happening in my life? So, in conclusion, everything that's happening happens for our good, everything. And then we can expect it, we can allow it, we can love it in a sense. And even those things that are difficult. I've been having a lot of challenges lately, and I know it's all for good. I know it is. And so, you know, that just shifts my whole way of looking at things. Okay, I think I'm complete. I know there's more I could say, and I think it's been long enough. So I love you guys. I love your consciousness, and yeah, just the way you show up. And I know you're working these principles. All right, let's turn within for prayer.